And welcome back to the Dr. Tommy Show. Joining you live from Wesley Chapel, Florida at Echelon-Health, where we practice concierge medicine. And if you want to join us online, you can at AskDrTommy.com. And if you would like to join us on iTunes, you could subscribe on iTunes, you could subscribe on YouTube. A variety of ways to get there. And the best way to get there is, like I said, go to AskDrTommy.com and you can learn all about us. And another thing you can learn about on AskDrTommy.com is our stupendous partner who is giving us all of the best support we can get to help our patients get better and help us have a robust software solution that's called Atlas MD. Atlas MD is a preeminent medical software for membership medicine practices. And if you would like to use Atlas MD and you're a membership medicine doctor like myself, and you practice direct primary care, or you practice concierge medicine, or you practice any kind of cash-based medicine where you don't need to interact with billing codes and ICD-9 codes and CPT codes and God only knows what else, go to AskDrTommy.com and click on the offer for special offer for Atlas MD. And then you too can enjoy the benefits that we have for 60 days free. And today I have a very special guest, is Dr. Vim Patel, who is joining us, and he is here to talk about some of the things that are going on in his neck of the woods, which is South Tampa. Dr. Patel.
Thanks for having me, Tommy.
You're welcome. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, sir.
Tell us about the name of your practices.
I have founded a practice called Evolve Personal Health in South Tampa. We cater, we are a direct primary care practice. Like you said, we don't want to deal with the hassles of insurance. I've done that for many years, and I've found a lot of problems with that. So we've kind of taken the middleman out, and now we are simply beholden to the patient themselves. So we have a membership-based practice like yourself, based down in South Tampa, where we treat all of our patients with a multifaceted approach, kind of like what you do here, diving into nutrition, into physical health, as well as what we think one of our linchpins of our practice here is introspective counseling, which is basically the emotional and the mental health that you need to overcome some of these medical ailments, these chronic diseases.
Well, back up and tell me, why was it that you felt compelled? You know, you and I both, we started training and we practiced even in the old model.
Yes.
So what made you decide this is not for me?
Well, let me take you back to when I first started here. I was a hospitalist for over a decade, and within that system, you were what a hospitalist is you're an inpatient doctor. You only work in the hospital setting,
right?
So they're very acute patients. What I found was that there seemed to be a revolving door. Where we saw patients every few months or so.
The same patients?
The same patients. Now, obviously, we saw many patients every day, but there were a handful, and I would say more than a handful of patients that constantly kept coming in for one reason or another. And most of the underlying reasons for this repeat visit were chronic diseases. And so I saw that the system that we had were simply trying to put a Band-Aid over certain problems. Let's just say, for instance, a cellulitis in a diabetic.
Right.
When it occurs, we can treat it fairly easily, and sometimes with fairly aggressive antibiotics. But this seemed to be the norm, and it seemed to be a repetitive cycle. Every few months, same patient population would come in with these same sort of diagnoses. And then I realized that it wasn't really the treatment aspects that were beneficial to them. They actually saw it as an inconvenience almost to be in there being treated with big gun antibiotics to interrupt their lives, to go back outside and do what they were doing. So I realized it was those in-between times that we really needed to make that difference within their lives. And after about a decade of practicing, we took a step back and analyzed. My wife and I analyzed what we were doing and what we envisioned doing prior to me working as a hospitalist. And we set out to create Evolve Personal Health.
Yeah, I was this morning, I just had to go to the dentist, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to go to the dentist this morning, get a tooth cleaning, whatever. And I'm going to be there for 30 minutes, and I'm going to get there on time, and they're going to take me back on time. But even then, I was like, that's inconvenient. I can't imagine having to be hospitalized. Right. I mean, I've had family members hospitalized, and you have to be hospitalized when there are emergencies happen, you know.
Yes.
But things like cellulitis, I mean,
Right.
that's potentially or very oftentimes preventable, and you're seeing the same people over and over again for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see how that's frustrating as a someone who knows how to do it better.
Not only on the physician end, on the hospital end, as well as on the patient end. Everybody understood that these problems were something preventable.
Right.
And the simple fact was the system didn't allow us to get to that point where if we needed a greater diligence or greater scrutiny onto the patients taking their medications, on their dietary habits, on their exercise habits, we weren't allowed to do that, or at least it wasn't reimbursable, which is really the key, I think, here.
You know that a lot of these groups, these hospital groups, are doing a lot of stuff that we do. You know that? They're doing where you can email your doctor, where you can text your doctor.
Absolutely.
I don't know about texting, but you can email your doctor.
Yes.
And do they pay those doctors extra for doing that?
They do not. It might be built within the system or built within your pay structure, but it's not anything that's individually reimbursed.
And so you're getting reimbursed by third party for doing this extra stuff. And it's not to say that they don't want to, but who has enough time to do all these other things? And the things that they have to do that we don't have to do is all of the, like we were talking about earlier, coding and stuff. So you can't fit all that into one day effectively.
Right.
So it kind of is, it's at cross purposes when you're trying to do this extra kind of concierge level service, but you don't have the time to do the concierge service.
Absolutely. So I think what the expectation is that we want to try to build in a concierge level type service within our, current surroundings. And I think what the problem becomes is that the constraints, placed upon the physician. And obviously I'm going to talk from my individual perspective because I was a physician, but there are constraints across the board on case managers, on nurses, as you go forward. So one of the bigger issues we had wasn't the patient care. And that was fairly straightforward because we've trained in that and we know how to do that, but it was all the paperwork on the back end. And now with some of the newer regulations implemented in the last few years, we have to now not only do that paperwork, but also try to justify certain actions where we have to put all of our reasoning behind what we did into certain programs, which may spit out a positive or negative reflection on you, regardless of the outcome of the patient. So this put greater burden on the physician simply because it added an extra layer of paperwork. Yeah,
and I was thinking this morning when I was updating my website, and so if you go to AskDrTommy.com, you have a little bit easier way to navigate. Thanks to my buddy Chris Pegg, who is a big aficionado of podcasts. He said, "Hey man, you should make it to where you can have the audio and the video." And so if you go to AskDrTommy.com, you'll see a nice big picture of the Dr. Tommy Show, me ensconced as alter ego Michael Corleone. And then you'll have watch live, listen on iTunes, or also subscribe. But I was thinking, when you have a concierge practice, your practice can take on your personality.
Absolutely.
And when you have a practice like you and I, so tell me about the personality of your practice and how you came about that.
All right. Well, when we initially started, we built the foundation of we wanted this to be patient-driven, patient-centered. But everybody has their own particulars on what you like and what you don't like. My personal preference, and I'm the physical coordinator. I'm the physician. I'm also a personal fitness trainer, and I'm a health coach. So my personal preference was to be active. That's not everybody's forte,
right?
But I promote running. We have monthly 5Ks and 15Ks. We have cycling clubs. We partnered up with other businesses that do adventure outings where our clients can participate even at a discounted rate. So we do have B2B relations where we do promote that active lifestyle, and that's my slant. But the greater function of Evolve Personal Health is to basically take the individual as to what their preferences are and try to accentuate that. So if you are not one that actively got out there and ran every day or swam or cycled, there are other ways for you to be active, to get in shape, and we take the steps to kind of place you in the proper situations.
So tell us about the life coaching, the introspective. What is that?
The introspective counseling.
Counseling.
Right. So that is a, like I said, one of the uniqueness about our practice. We know that physical activity is good for the body. It'll improve your health. That's without a doubt. We know that nutrition, what we put into our body, is equal to health, or is equal to bad health. Right. You can eat a side of bacon every day, and you're inevitably going to get clogged arteries. We pretty much can draw a direct line between that. But what we don't treat is the ability to overcome the obstacles of the disease. So when you're newly diagnosed diabetic, or let's say you're in your second heart attack, your doctor is going to prescribe a few lifestyle modifications. Now, how do you practically get that into practice when your life has been set in one way? You have a family that is used to cooking one way, or your lifestyle or your work or other factors just inhibit you from taking those corrective actions. Well, what we try to do is get you over those obstacles with our introspective counseling. We try to get the patient to reflect as to what the solutions may be. We understand there are obstacles that may inhibit your further progress into getting better, but we try to take a look at what actual solutions we have, and try to take those small steps into alleviating those obstacles. And we've seen some phenomenal results.
So do you do that, or someone in your office do that?
So we basically have like a triumvirate where I am the MD as well as the physical counselor, where I try to get all the patients up and moving, and we try to get them physically active. We have a nutritional coach, Don Santos, who is believes in as well as a practice, we believe in a whole food, plant-based diet. And my wife, who is the introspective counselor, Dr Vim Patel, she is a wellness coach and an executive coach, where this is, we believe, that main tipping point, where once the individual can understand certain facets of what's inhibiting them, they're better apt to move forward.
How long, if I've met with you or somebody meets with you and they do the introspective counseling, how long is that session? Is that an hour? Is that 30 minutes? Does it vary?
Right. So the great thing about a membership practice is that it's carte blanche. You have the time, and if you have the time, we have the time. We're there to serve you, right? So we bill it as an hour, but we've had some clients go over. We've had some clients say, I just don't have the hour to give you, and they come in for a 15-minute session. Other clients say, I can't even make it down to the office. So we actually have telemedicine conferences. So we try to organize ourselves so it's conducive to the client or the patient. You
know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we have kind of the similar setup here, but it's not said what we do here. But you have, you know, this, like you said, the triumvirate. We have, you know, Tracy and myself, but a lot of times a patient will come in and I'll hear them talk to Tracy about something. They'll see me, we'll talk about something, and they'll see Tracy, and I can just overhear that they're talking to Tracy about things that I didn't even hear about. Right. So that's kind of neat that you do that.
Well, one of the great things is that, like you said, people will tell me one thing, and they have their reasons for saying whatever statements they want to tell the doctor. Right. But maybe it's friendlier atmosphere, or you know, the MD behind your name makes you, puts you on guard. As we know, certain patients will tell you certain things which they think you may want to hear. But we find in our practice, we cross communicate. So when a patient comes to see the introspective counselor or the nutrition counselor, we have team meetings at least once a week to discuss how can we all together as a unit move the patient forward. And there are times where I find, you know, client didn't tell me that, yet they told you this. Right. And
Tracy will say, did so-and-so tell you such and such? I'm like, no.
So we get a clearer picture in that way, because we're not just, it's not just the doctor communicating with the patient, but there are other individuals that get other tangential pieces of information, which eventually do become important in managing the patient's chronic disease. So we find that when we cross communicate, when we communicate across the spectrum, we get a sharper picture of what the patient needs, what the obstacles are, and how to better improve the patient.
Yeah. What is it that you think is going to be coming up? You know, you and I both have practices called concierge medicine, membership medicine, direct primary care.
Yeah.
What do you think is the next wave of this? Is this going to become more prominent? Are we going to see more of these practices pop up across the state, across the country?
Right.
What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think that's inevitable. If we take a look at the current state of affairs, which, let's face it, it's not good. We don't have a decision one way or the other on which way we are going to go. So that leaves us in a limbo here, in a limbo state.
You hear that, Mitch? Dr. Patel wants you to get it together. You too, Paul.
Right. No, we certainly need direction. Okay. But
actually, we need them to step out of the way, but that's all right.
I agree with you, Dr. Tommy. But I think I want to make an analogy to a different system. Let's talk about the English system that has a nationalized system. But what they saw upon implementing a nationalized system was there was a partition where those that were covered within the system got a standard of care, and those others that wanted, let's say, that extra care, were able to pay for that care. They weren't inhibited from doing that. So it's a two-tier system that manifested in England. So just looking at the trajectory of what concierge medicine is here, we've seen a phenomenal growth in the last decade, where I think the total number of concierge practices in the U.S. was less than 1% about a decade ago. Now we're approaching close to double digits. I think we're at about 7% here. So we've seen a tremendous growth in that area. And I think it's going to continue because the partition is going to continue to happen, especially with the uncertainty of what's happening with the American
I think
healthcare.
you're right. I think you'll see a growing demand for it. And also I think you'll see that the amount of people who choose to go outside of their system. There's a one of the big things about direct primary care is where people say, well, I have insurance, and then why do I need to pay you if I have insurance? And so that's one of the things that people are understanding now, is that insurance gives you insurance. So in the purest sense, insurance is to pay for things that are rare, expensive, and unpredictable. Absolutely. And then it mutated to become, well, it's not insurance. We call it insurance, but it's really a health plan. It's a prepaid health plan. And so if you happen to sprain your toe, or if you happen to have a heart attack, we'll cover you, prepaid health plan. And that was that. And then so back, they used to have deductibles that were, $500, $5,000, whatever. And then we started having Obamacare and a Affordable Care Act, put all these mandates in, and then have all these artificial price constraints that have caused insurance now. So people say they have insurance, they have a $5,000 deductible. It covers nothing up until $5,000 essentially. And then, so they're stuck. They're like, well, what am I going to do? I need to see the doctor. And so every time they go to the doctor, they're still paying. And so a lot of those people are saying, you know what, forget it. I'm going to cut out the whole thing. I have to buy expensive insurance. I'm going to buy it. Otherwise, I get penalized. But I'm going to find a doctor that I can see when I need to see him. I can text him when I need to text him. And I can email him or her. And then I could see the doctor whenever I need to without all of the constraints. And so I think it's going to, you're going to see that influx of patients continue into this system that's freedom. And then hopefully what will happen is the tail will wag the dog, and you'll see the insurance come back into line with what insurance was supposed to be before originally. And I think if people want to pay for health plans that are prepaid health plans, then they should be welcome to. And if people want to pay for insurance that is covering catastrophic stuff only, they should be able to do that. And that's what you need to do, Mitch and Paul and all you other guys up there.
Well, I think once people do the math, especially with the rates that we're seeing now, they'll find that we are a much more affordable option. You are much more available to them. It's much more, it's personalized, and it's at a vastly cheaper cost. So I don't disagree that people should have catastrophic insurance. Insurance, the way insurance is built, in case something bad happens, your car insurer is not going to pay for your monthly car payment, but they will pay for an accident. And in that same analogy, like you said, when we get insurance, we expect that our health is going to be paid for. That's not correct. Damage to your health may be paid for, but you're going to have to pay out of pocket for maintenance costs.
Yeah, I think you were alluding to it earlier when you said, when they decide what they're going to do, and I think we are at a standstill in the consuming public about healthcare, because and doctors too. It's like, well, what are you guys going to do? You've made this Affordable Care Act thing, which is a monstrosity, universally panned from Democrats and Republicans. So it just depends on whether you say we should scrap the whole thing or fix it. And so anyway, so it's you guys made this. And so here we are still waiting on you now to fix something else.
Right. It's been years.
It's very frustrating.
The implementation, the gradual implementation of something that we kind of understood wasn't going to be the best system. Trying to alleviate a system that was essentially going to be a behemoth and wouldn't be able to carry its own weight. We have not solved that problem.
What do you think about? And this is an interesting thing that I've seen is in California. There's a movement to have a single payer program for California.
Right.
What do you think? Is California, is that a, I mean, obviously people have their own judgments about whether it's not single payer is good, but I personally, and I want to hear what you'd like to say, but I personally would rather see that where if California wants to choose that, then they can choose it. Because you see people all the time who say, we're the only industrialized country that doesn't have single payer.
Yes.
Okay, so fine. So let's say that you want single payer. I think in our United States of America, where a state like California is as big or bigger than most countries in Europe where they have this, why not let a state do it?
Sure.
Why not let California or Vermont or whoever, pick your choice, do something unique and let a different state do something else unique and have 50 different plans or 50 different or regional plans? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we do have a form of nationalized health care, which is called Medicare and Medicaid.
Correct.
And it's for a subset of our population. But if we presume that states are the laboratory for democracy.
Correct.
I find it reasonable for a state such as California, I believe it's the 6th biggest economy in the world,
right,
to say, well, we want to try to implement something that we feel is correct for our population, and they should have all rights to do it.
I think that's appropriate. And I think
absolutely.
I wish that our leaders in Washington would adopt that principle, where we are going to give you the freedom to do that.
Right. I think the greatest thing that'll come out of it would be if it succeeds, the rest of the states follow.
Exactly.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if it fails,
states,
we'll see.
Or there might, like you said, they will follow it. And let's say, they may adopt parts of it, or they may discard whole parts of it.
Right. We're going to find that the benefits and the negative factors for having a national system.
Tell us a little bit about your office. So we walk into your office, your clinic. Tell us kind of what is it? How is it? Where is it, first of all? Where is it? For those of you in Tampa.
We are located in South Tampa on West El Prado, 2404. It's called Evolve Personal Health. So when we were building this building, we took into account a lot of different things. Now, as many people in the greater Tampa area know, we have a plan to revitalized the downtown area.
I was just telling Trace about that. Jeff Finnick
of South Tampa. Jeff Finnick and his group, the SPG Partners, are creating something called a well district. And it is going to be the first of its kind in the world. And what they are doing is trying to create architecture that is conducive to health. There is a group that certifies architecture in aspects of lighting, locations of objects within the room, little things that we would not think of as how it can affect your mood are built into certain places. So we actively took that upon ourselves to create a location, to create a space.
So y'all went down there because of that? Kind of.
Well, our creation of this was preceding the announcement of the well district. So,
but it fits in.
It was we found that it was mutually beneficial here. We created a place that everything is hardwired, so we don't have any sort of EMF in the building, which was important to some people. We also
so you don't have.
No.
Let's talk about that then.
Which makes it a little bit difficult sometimes moving our.
So tell them back up, because that's interesting. So EMF, what is that?
Electromagnetic frequencies. Some people
Tracy's watching this. She knows exactly where I'm going with this. Right.
They feel that they have a response to high levels of EMF. My opinion doesn't fall one way or the other on that. But what we wanted to do is be conscious of these problems, and so it was something fairly easy, because we're building foundation up to say we are not going to have active EMF in our space.
Okay.
We do have a place called, upon entering, you see this vast opening, and we call it our quiet space.
Okay.
So we wanted there to be serenity in in understanding what Jeff Vinnick's vision is for this well district, we actually wanted a model beforehand for people to walk in and say, I can understand your example here. So we have lighting, filtration being done by an echo mesh that has jasmine vines coming down. We have, recycled bamboo, wood flooring. We have a color palette that is calming. So we've taken all of these little factors into account and created our space.
And who's in there? So it's yourself?
It's myself, the introspective counselor, and our nutritionist. Now, along with that, we also have in our Great Space programming every day. And by programming, I mean we have yoga, we have breath work, we have a massage therapist on staff that our clients can use. So we have a lot of ancillary services for our clients as well in whatever comes to us. If a client says, hey, I want to learn about juicing, we actually have a person come in talking about how to juice and what are the best vegetables to use. So
one of our patients today was juicing. He started juicing. He's lost a lot of weight.
Right. We have monthly programs as far as educational programs, and we have B2B contacts where we do something that a mutual friend of ours, Sharon Feckerty, brought up.
The Doctor Whisperer.
The Doctor Whisperer, that's right. So we were working with Sharon in the beginning stages, and we realized that business-to-business contact, local businesses, are certainly an advantage for us. So we bring in not necessarily just health businesses, we bring in grocers, juicers, other people, running clubs, and we allow our patients to be exposed to diverse ideas, diverse businesses, just to see, if any one of them flies with the patient.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're there. I think it's a great place to be. Granted, we're completely on the other side of Tampa, and we think this is a great place to be too. But it's awesome to have new faces every day. And like you said, I think it is going to become more prominent. And I think there's going to be more and more people doing this. And I think the more we can learn from each other, I think it's cool.
Absolutely.
And I think it's also cool that we can spread the word doing things like this. So Dr. Tommy Show, promoting other people who are doing the things that we think are on the cutting edge. Yeah.
So being on the cutting edge as you are, Dr. Tommy, I mean, you look at reports and studies that do show benefits of certain unproven modalities, which if and when you incorporate into your practice shows a great benefit for our patients. So, we believe in, as you do, a more holistic approach to health, right? Not a compartmentalized view where we're just treating the blood sugar itself and you send them out to a cardiologist and then you send them out to a rheumatologist. We take a look at a multifaceted whole view of the patient. And if we want to give it a term, we practice lifestyle medicine, where we take a look at who you are, what you do every day, what you consume, what your stressors are, and try to fix a chronic problem such as hypertension or diabetes that way. We are in particular going to have programs specifically geared, targeting these diseases for many patients, because this is the single most important factor or single most hindering factor in their lives, right? So when you have to take insulin 3 times a day, this is what you think about every day. The food that you consume is what you think about every day. So we want to try to build upon that difficulty of your life and really try to alleviate it. We've had many patients that have been taking off, reduction in medication, as opposed to what I did before is
just keep
add medication. Right.
Your lifestyle medicine's an interesting thing, and it's one of the things that we're not taught about in medical school, and it's one of those things that I think has a lot of explanations for what we have seen anecdotally. Yeah, explains it more on a scientific level. Sure, and it helps people understand, because there's a big market for people who don't want to be treated the same old way. Absolutely, and that's not to say that those types of medicines don't have their places, but there's a lot of times when other things aren't even tried. Yeah, and until you are able to find someone, patient-wise and physician-wise, who are interested in trying something new, yes, then you can sometimes get stuck in a rut. Yeah. I just wanted to cover this. One of our patients, one of the cool things about having a concierge medicine practice is you have all these engaged patients, and one of our members sent us this, and it's from the Washington Post. It's about rip currents in Florida. It says, rip currents swept away a Florida family, then beachgoers formed a human chain. And so this is from July 11th. And it says 6 members of a single family, 4 adults and 2 boys, and 4 other swimmers had been swept away by powerful and deceptive rip currents trending below the water's surface. Then one of the people who was on the shore said, "These people are not drowning today," Jessica Simmons thought. "It's not happening. We're going to help get them out." And they formed a human chain, and they were able to help these people get out of there. And so the reason I bring this up is because I myself am not a strong swimmer. And if you go out to the water, you have to be careful, especially for yourself or your family members, that there's these currents that can come and take you away.
Yeah.
And it's impossible almost to, be able to swim against that. And you have to know what to do. And for Florida, we're surrounded by water on all sides except for, going north. And then amongst that, you have all these lakes and things in the middle. So we definitely encourage you all to be cautious when you're out at the beach. Don't be paranoid, but be cautious. And then also make sure that if you're not able to swim, that you stay closer to the shore or out of the water completely, or if you're not a good swimmer, you stay,
Oh, absolutely. Just to first of all, that story shows how amazing people are.
Yes.
We always talk about this country being partisan and a lot of bad news, and then you read a story like that where people put their lives at risk to save 4 other individuals, and that's such an amazing story.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
I did have an instance where something like that happened to a friend of mine. We were on spring break at some Caribbean country, and I guess everybody thinks they're a pretty good swimmer, even wading in waist-high water. It wasn't even a minute before he was drifting about, I would say, 30, 40 feet away.
Wow. And,
when you're just a bunch of teenagers, you're not sure if this guy's playing around or if it's something serious. And probably a good 2 minutes into it, we realized he's flailing way too much.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, we eventually swam in, a few of my friends, we swam in, and when you're pulled out from a rip current, what they tell you is to swim diagonal or parallel to the shore. Now, it's obviously a longer line to get to the shore. It's not directly in. But what it'll do is it kind of counter the rip current. The rip current is pushing against you if you're going perpendicular to the shore. Right. So you want to swim in line with that rip current.
So you don't exhaust yourself.
Right. And so you want to let it push you towards that shore as well. So swim in a diagonal line, essentially almost parallel to that shore. So we eventually saved him, but it can happen in an instant. So, even whether you're a strong swimmer or not, nobody's immune to this. And it can happen so quickly. So just be on your guard when you're having fun.
You hate to read about it. Fortunately, this wasn't a bad outcome, but you hate to read about it. Right. People lose their lives when they're, trying to go have fun. Dr. Patel, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Dr.
Look forward to talking to you further. And, maybe, in a year from now, we'll reconvene and see what happened, but we should see you sooner.
I would love to. Thank you for having me on, Dr. Tommy.
Appreciate it. And for all of you out there who are interested in going to AskDrTommy.com, I maintain a blog there. And this is one of the blog posts I did was from about the guitar players who sing. And guitar players are known to play guitar, but they also sing sometimes. And the singer that we're going to feature today is Brian May, the co-founder and guitarist and sometimes vocalist for Queen. But this is him with the Brian May Band, and he's covering the Russ Ballard song, Since You've Been Gone, which was first recorded by Rainbow in the 70s with Graham Bonnet fronting the band, that is founded by Richie Blackmore. And so this is Since You've Been Gone. And for those of you listening on iTunes, we can't play this, so it's going to fade out. But if you want to learn about it or see the whole thing, go to YouTube and subscribe. Until next time, bye-bye.
Fall to the ground and wake up. So I get out of bed. on my shoes and in my head, thoughts right back to the breakup. These four walls are closing in. Look what a fix you put me in. Since you've been gone, since you've been gone, out of my head can't take it. Could I be wrong? Since you've been gone, you cast a spell so breaking. Oh, 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 oh. Since you've been gone, so in the night I stand beneath the back street light. I read the words that you sent to me. I can take the